Hello friends, family, and fellow Fibro Warriors. How are you today? For today's hashtag ABC April 2025 letter of the day J, we are going to take a look at a couple different things. We're going to take a look at a bunch of different things that you can do with junk envelopes and a bunch of different things that you can do with those bags that you get, say, from the pharmacy with your stuff in. So let's dive right in because we've got 22, 23 things that we're going to take a look at for the junk mail envelopes, and it looks like 5 different things that we're going to take a look at for the junk paper sacks that you get from the pharmacy. So let's dive right in. So first thing I wanted to show you, this is one of my glue books, and what I did in this particular glue book, if you can see right here, is I took a junk mail envelope and I made like a window into a page where you see what's on the next page, but then when you flip it over, it also shows what's on the page prior. So that's a fun way of, it's like a peekaboo window, we'll call it. So that's something fun that you can do in your journals. Next, I'm going to pull out my ideas book here so I can get it out of the way and find, it's a bit chubby. Something you can do with an envelope is take and cut the top off, fold it in half and glue it down, and then you've got some tuck spots here. And I've got a little tuck spot here. You've got tuck spots inside where you can tuck different tags, and it's just a nice little addition. If you wanted to, theoretically, you could glue it in a way that you could tuck in this way or tuck additional stuff in that way, but you do got to be careful in journals that you don't get too overly bulky. So next we'll take a look at this particular, this is a belly band that I did where I velcroed it shut, and when you open it up, it actually expands. Let me tip this up so you can see. It actually expands so that you can tuck little tickets and, hidey things if you want to put papers in there. All I did was take an envelope, folded it lengthwise, cut the bottom off, and glued in the center there. And then I used the flap on the envelope to go ahead and close the whole thing down. So that was a belly band idea. And then in this instance, you can see a wraparound. I took the tab on, or the flap on the envelope, and used it to create a spot for, a tuck or a little pocket. I also have the pocket on the inside of the envelope itself, and then it wraps around the page, and it does the same thing on this other side. So it has two tuck spots on that side. So let me set this out of the way, and we'll keep on keeping on. Something else that you can do when we're talking about wraparounds on pages, this is one of those giant fat envelopes, and all I did was take the flap of the envelope and glued it on a page. You could glue it solid, or you could glue it in a way that this would be a tuck on a page, and then that gives you space that you can decorate the outside, put pockets, whatever. You could even hide pockets on the inside here, but it also gives you a pocket in which you can tuck ephemera, tuck extra papers. You've got spot under here that you could hide like journaling space and stuff like that. So I just wanted to show you some of the different wraparound ideas that I'd come up with. This was one, that wrapped around the page like this. So you've got, a tuck from the side. I opened the envelope from the side instead of the top. And then when you flipped it over again, you got a tuck from the side. And I used the flap on the envelope to make a little tuck on the back here. This is one here that if you take the flap on the envelope, again, you can glue it down solid, or if you glue the ends, and that leaves this as a tuck spot. and it just had an extra flap here that I'm trying to think if I made it a pocket. Yep, I made it a little pocket. And then I, of course, made this here into a pocket as well. So on this one, excuse the dog here, you have the flap on the envelope that, again, you can glue down to your page and make it a little tuck spot. That'd be a pretty little tuck spot if you glued it, you know, top and bottom. And then when you flipped it open, you've got an area in here where you can put your papers and things like that. You know, you can hide a little note to the person. And then on the outside, I just decorated it in a way that there's a pocket there on the outside. And I did put my little tab as an indicator to the person, hey, flip this over, there's a secret inside. On this one, again, I chose to put the little, on the back flap here, I put a little tab type or notch indicator that, hey, this is, you know, a little tuck spot. When I flip this open, if you're looking at this side of the page here, I've got a little notepad on the outside. I flip it open and there's actually a little tuck spot here that you could tuck something in. If you wanted to make this journaling space, you could do that and, you know, obviously see through the window and see what's underneath. This is like that one other one where, again, you're making it, when you tuck it in, it's just a little pocket for hiding away a note or envelope, as is this one. Now this particular one, I actually made it in a way where I've got two pockets on the inside to hide things. What I did was I had a short piece on the end of an envelope left, so I just glued that down inside my other envelope here. It's a little hard to see, but we've got two different envelopes, two different widths glued together, so that makes, you know, a tuck here, or a pocket there and a pocket there, and then you can either glue that solid or glue it as a tuck on the inside of the journal. This is like an over the top of the page type thing, where if I put it over top of the page, I'd have a tuck here. And then obviously if I flip that up, I've got a journaling space. And all I did was open the envelope there, glued it shut, it looks like, and just put a little decoration in there. But when I flip that up, it gives me a journaling space on this side and a tuck on this side. So the next one is another top tucking idea. And with that, I've got a little sideways belly band on the front that I got a little tag tucked in. I opened the side of the envelope where I put a little tag in the side, and then when I flip it up, there's actually a little notepad underneath. So that's an idea. And then obviously on the back, I've got my little tuck space. This is just your standard tuck envelope wraparound, as is this one, that one. Let me see if I come up with any other different ones. This one, again, I took an envelope, covered it, used it as a tuck, left the back where if you wanted, since this back was relatively white, I'd probably cover this strip here, but then you could use this as journaling space and tuck something in there. This is another, you know, window envelope wraparound that has just space to tuck stuff in. This is one that, the way I designed this one, I took and opened up the envelope so that I could use this as a flip up where you see what's, you know, you can see through as a reveal on what's underneath, and then you can flip it up, say you want a journaling space or a decorative thing. Then on this side, I would glue it down and glue it here, and this could be a little tuck on this other side. And then on this one, it's simply you would glue it on the page. You could see through here that there's, once I flip this open, there's some journaling space on the inside here, or I could even take and tuck this in a pocket. So those are some over the page ideas. Some different over the page ideas. These are little corner tucks. So all you do is take an envelope, cut it open, and then you can use it to tuck over the corner of your page, and you can put stuff in. You can use these as well as bookmarks. So here are some ideas that I made with that. You can either choose the ones where you leave the windows in or take the windows out, but those are some over the corner, we'll call them over the corner bookmarks that you can also use as tucks. So another idea I come up with was, you know how you always have the waterfalls going this way? Well, my idea was take, a lot of times when you're creating junk mail envelope ideas, you use the ones that have the windows on them. Well, then you end up with the offcuts on the ends because you usually cut them down, and I used a lot of those offcuts on the ends, and what I did was I made little pockets. You know, they were already, I guess, little pockets, and I just put those pockets together in a way that it is a waterfall going sideways. If you glued it down into your journal, it would be a waterfall going sideways, and then when you flip it over, you've got journaling space behind it, which this one would obviously be glued down in, but you can put your journaling space, you know, on both sides when you flip it open. You can decorate it more, but these are some ideas I come up with there. You know, then in addition to the journaling space, you also have the pockets that you can tuck these stuff into as well. So it's one thing I thought was neat was if you find some envelopes of differing widths, you know, you can not only stagger it this way, but you can stagger them. You know, it gives you a little bit of a step down design. And this is one that I actually used a window envelope that I had as my big underside envelope and just put some, you know, thumb notches in this particular one so you could see that those were pockets. But those are some, excuse me, those are some waterfall, sideways waterfall pockets. These are other just regular standard size pockets. This one, I guess, is in the wrong spot. I'll leave that one for later. This is one where I took the envelope. I don't remember where I saw the idea. You can see it here. I took the envelope and actually flipped it on the bottom, flipped it up, and then if you cut these on an angle, you not only can make a pocket for the inside that's a reveal type pocket, but if you glue then the sides, you've got a tuck spot in the back here. You've got a tuck spot in the middle. And then if you glue this in, you know, you can make additional tuck spots or glue it solid. This one, I just took the flap and traced it out and made it, you know, as an extra tuck spot on the side. And then I've got my opening in the top. This one is one that I flipped down. I'd probably put a little journal spot in here. And then when you glue it in, it's got, you know, your pocket from the side. This is a little pocket that's got a tag tucked inside. You could either glue this down as a pocket, or if you wanted to, on the back of this, you could use it sort of like a tag, where you journal on the back, you've got the tag tucked inside, like a double tag, and then you tuck this inside of a pocket as well. Like if you took and, you know, tucked it down in this pocket. I'm not going to go real far because of that rose, but tucked it in. There's just a standard pocket there. This one we took and turned the envelope inside out so that you could get the decorative element of the inside of the envelope and made it into a pocket. You know, just again, your standard window pockets. These were some offcuts here that just covered, and it turned it into the bottom. Here's one that, you know, again, turned the envelope inside out. Instead of leaving this window open where I had to come up with something decorative in it, I just glued a more decorative paper on the inside. But this is, as you see, an envelope. Here are, you know, just envelope bases. That's the inside of an envelope. You know, your windows as envelope bases inside of an envelope. This is another one where we turned it inside out. Put a more decorative paper on the inside and made it a base. This is one where I took, and when I cut it like some of the other pockets where you have the little flaps that tuck in, so it gives you a little bit of a gusseted effect where you can fit stuff in better. Again, your tag base, your pocket bases. This is another pocket base that I used here. And here's one. So the next idea is, this is something where you take your envelope and you fold it in a way where you can either use this to store, say, a long bookmark, or, you know, instead of the bookmark, you could tuck a pen down in there. If you make it so that you slide a paper clip on the back, then you could clip this onto a page. And if you had your bookmark or your pen inside, that would make a nice addition to a journal. Probably closer, if you have a pen, probably closer to one of the covers, but it's definitely something you could use. Next idea, let me dig through. Next idea is, these are, and I can't remember for the life of me who I got this idea from, but what she did was, when she cut the envelopes, she cut it open in a way that you left just a little bit of it glued together. Just a little bit of it attached together. So like if you're on one of the outside folds. And then she cut it, and what that does is makes a fun little thing where once you tuck it over your page, it gives you a little bit of a page reveal. If your page is straight, it gives you a little bit of a page reveal. And then on this one and on several of these, I put, you know, little notepads and stuff on the back. But you can decorate those in a variety of ways. But it's fun to have that little page reveal. You can do page reveal, you know, top, bottom, whatever you want. You can put your little, you know, tab portion at any part along here. And then that gives you a nice little spot to tuck on both sides. So here are some other ideas that I did with that. Again, I've got a little notepad on the back of that one. Notepad on the back of this one as well. You could put pockets on the back. You could leave them plain on the back and just use them as the tucks. Like I said, you could put little pockets on the sides. And you don't have to do it where you come in just that long ways. This is one where, you know, we come in, you know, from the side. Or if you wanted, if you made it in a way, you could do it where, you know, this isn't oriented, right? But you could also do it where you come in and make them as like top tucks on your page as well. And keep in mind, if you leave this just as the corner bend on your envelope, it'll be a little bit deeper. You'll see more of the page edge. If you don't want to see quite as much of that page edge, you just glue a tiny bit here, and it makes that reveal a little bit shallower. So there's that idea. This is something I got from Roxy Creations, where she took a tag, and again, I've used the paper on the tag, or on the envelope as, you know, one of my background papers, but she took a tag and she glued it to an envelope or a pocket. And that's where I'm just using an offcut on an envelope as my pocket. And this is one where I had a journal card instead of a tag. And again, glued it to an envelope, and that's my little pocket on the back here. And then when you glue these down, you know, you could tuck in different ways. If you covered the back, you could tuck it into a pocket and just use the back as journaling space, but that's an additional idea I had there. There's some of these, which I think you've probably seen floating around on the internet, where you cut open the envelope, you flip part of the flap down, you flip part of the flap up. But what you want to do first is, when you cut it open, you sort of cut it in a tag type shape. And then where the angles on the corners of the tag, quote unquote tag, are, that's where you go ahead and, you know, bend the front part down and leave that back part sticking up. In this particular one, the way I glued it, I've got a little tuck on the front here, and then it makes a nice pocket, nice large pocket on the inside here where you can tuck stuff. And again, you know, depending on how you glue this down, it can be extra tuck space, or if you covered the back, it could be just a journaling area. This is one that it looks like, took a bunch of envelopes and sort of hodgepodged them together, glued them together. So I've got a tuck spot here, I've got a tuck spot here, and then I've got a tuck spot coming in from the side here. So that was just made by gluing several envelopes together, and then when I glued it down, I could have another pocket here, here, you know, any of the directions, or just glued straight down on the page. This is one that is made where you can see the whole envelope length, and, you know, created a tuck on this back edge and tucks, little shallow tucks on the inside. And then when you fold it closed, which this one, I probably wouldn't put all the as many tucks maybe on the inside, maybe leave that as journaling space, but then you could take and tuck that down inside of a pocket, you know, as a little bit of added interest, a little bit of extra journaling space, a little bit of extra space where you can tuck other secret items. These two are tag ideas. So this one, I took the window part of the envelope and, looks like I got, there it is, you know, glued it to the front of another tag. And then I've got a little journal card that I then tuck inside of that. So it's a tag with a journal card. And I just used that window as a reveal spot. Now this tag, what I did was I took the envelope, turned it inside out, and flipped the bottom edge up and glued it down, which made a little pocket on the back here. And then on the front, this is actually just closed up, and I put decorative paper on the inside that you see through, and it just makes it, you know, like a little tag then that you tuck into a pocket. Next idea is one that flips over the top of a page. So you take a window from two different envelopes, or, you know, pieces of two different envelopes, and you attach them together. Or in this instance, it looked like I just took one long envelope, and it can then flip over the page, and you've got, you know, tags that you can then, or journal spots that you can tuck into both sides. Sometimes these can be a little hard to get a hold of, but journal spots you can tuck into both sides. And then also, if you flip them up, you've got journaling area underneath. And, you know, this is something that you could, under these papers here, these journal papers here, you could tuck little magnets, and then when you put it on, you know, it would physically clip it down, or you could leave it just loose. I would say, you know, tuck it maybe not towards the outside edge of your page, but you could just leave it loose and it should stay put as well. And then oftentimes, you know, you can just use these things, just one layer of the envelope as a single pocket itself. Or, you know, if you've got a lot of times the back side of the envelopes have a little bit of a decorative shape, and you can use those, cover them, and use them for nice deep tuck spaces on these sides of pages. So those are some additional ideas, side tucks. This idea I got from Natasha at Treasure Books. What she did was she took, this is an actual envelope, another envelope, I guess, a smaller one that she made with her envelope. This one needs covered up, but if you have that, you could have your journaling space on the back side. And this one she took and made like a little notebook. So it's sort of like an envelope. It has a flap over that you would put something around it. She suggested maybe putting a pocket here in the front that you could tuck something in so you could see it through the window. But then, you know, the surprise is when you open it up, you've got paper inside that you can journal on. And then again, if you close that up, you can tuck that into a pocket. So these are actually two different ideas that she came up with. The next idea was, if you take an envelope and you just fold it in half, you can take and use this inside space here, cover it and use it as journaling space. And then if you cut off the one edge, technically you could cut off both edges, I suppose, you can fold up some paper and tuck it in there as a little secret spot. This is one where, you know, I used the window envelope to do a decorative side. This one I left completely open where you could tuck something all the way down in there and then slide this in a pocket. This one is, I glued it down on this back side so that you just had this little shallow pocket where you tuck some paper in. But there's that's a couple different ideas of ways to just use the envelope intact to make something that you then, you know, tuck down in a little spot, in a little pocket. And this is just something that we've seen in other things where, you know, these are a couple clusters where I just took the inside of the envelope paper here and used it as part of my background papers. Because a lot of times, you know, those envelopes have some really interesting designs on them that you won't find anywhere else. And, you know, with so many of them have, you know, these blacks or blues or grays, so they make a nice neutral that goes in the background of things. These are some coin envelopes that I made using envelopes. I just cut it off in a way that left part of it a little bit long, and that then I can cut the flap shape, fold it over. Now when you do that, you do not want to fold it in a way that the fold is right tight against this edge. You do want to leave a little bit of an opening so that it's easier to tuck stuff in. This is one I did it with the windows on it. And then you can put any type of closure you want, Velcro. You could wrap some sort of string around it. You could use those button string closures. You can put magnets. So coin envelopes are another idea. These are just some simple belly bands with the window portions. It makes a neat idea where if you glue that belly band onto a page, you can peek through at, you know, what's behind on the page or what you tuck in under. So here's a couple simple belly bands, and they don't all have to be glued vertically. You can take and glue your belly bands horizontally and tuck stuff in. The horizontal belly bands are really nice for taking and hanging something over, maybe that's got a little notebook and stuff on it, because then it definitely stays put. So just real simple belly band ideas. This is an idea, and I don't remember if I don't remember if I got it from Roxy Creation or who I got it from. And all it is simply cutting the end off of an envelope. You use it as a tag, but when you cut the end off, then you've got this space inside that you can tuck papers and stuff down in that you can pull out and journal on. So you're actually using the envelope itself as a tag. A fun little tag with a tuck spot inside instead of on the outside. You know, this one I cut in an actual tag shape. This one I just left like that. You've got journaling space on the back. You put, you know, any sort of decorations you want on it. And then this is an idea that Roxy Creations had as well, where you take the window part of your envelope, you fold it over, and then you open up the inside. It does take a little bit of cutting where you cut away the top part of the envelope and then some, and it leaves you with a little pocket on the inside. She had hers like this, where she showed what was underneath as a, you know, sort of a reveal of what was underneath, and then had the pocket space. On some of mine, I did that. On some of them, I actually just tucked a picture in. This is a nice long one here. This one, I actually, the window's there. You can, you know, peekaboo see what's underneath, but, you know, I covered a lot of it with the decorations. But, again, these all have that extra pocket inside that you can tuck things in. And you can, you know, tuck these down into other pockets or glue them onto your page and use them as pockets themselves. So those are my junk mail ideas. Now I'm going to show you my ideas. Sorry for the disaster here. My ideas for the envelopes that you get at pharmacies. This idea was a page wraparound, where I just took the envelope from the pharmacy, turned down the one corner and glued it, and then when I wrap it around my page, I've got one side with a little tuck spot because I took the end of the envelope, folded it up, and glued it. So I got a tuck spot on this side. And then I've got a little pocket on this side as well. And if you wanted to glue this solid, you could, or you could glue it in a way that you've got another tuck area. And these are, you know, just all along the same idea line. You can see here where, you know, I have a matching corresponding tag from Margaret's Gothic Architecture Collection, but these were all designed the same way, with the angle on one side and the tuck on the other. You could, if you wanted to, make it a tuck on both ends. So what we looked at the other day on the Fanciful Frog folio, this is a folio like that, where you just take a couple of the bags. These would probably need to be more of the ones that are shaped like the lunch sacks, but you can take and make little folios or journals with them. Here's another idea with one of those paper sack type things. Sometimes you do get pharmacy stuff in them, but you know, that flips open, it's folded in three. You'd glue down the edges here, make this a tuck spot. You could put some paper inside that you journal on, have some journaling areas inside. If you wanted to put some extra pockets in there, you could. But that's just a real simple little folio too, and that's a nice something you can send in the mail to somebody, or it's fun for kids to make. This lady sent me some stuff, and I made some of those up with my kids. It's also something small enough that you could tuck inside of another pocket. This one's a little bit bigger. It's sort of like a little standalone that you would use like a little standalone mini journal. But you could also send that in the mail to somebody. Let's see. The next idea is these I took and I had the long paper bag. I folded the open end down. These are just the ones that are, you know, folded flat at the bottom. I folded the open end down and made little tuck spots. So this has, you know, 2 tuck spots there. I then could flip that open. These fold around the page too. So we'll get it folded around the page and I'll show you. So actually they fold around the page. I made them to fold around the bottom. You could, I suppose, fold them around the side, but you know, you've got your tuck spots here. You glue it in a way that you've got a tuck here behind. And then when you fold this up, if you leave this unglued on the sides, you'd have some hidden journal spots in there. Then when you flip the page, again, you glue this down on the sides and you'd have a tuck in here and additional hidden journaling space when you fold it on the sides. Now, if you don't want to glue it down, you can take and just use a paper clip and clip those onto your page. But these were all made with those pharmacy bags, those just real long, skinny pharmacy bags that are flat on the bottom. Give me a second, I'll show you what I mean. It's just a pharmacy bag like this. That's what I used to make all of these with, and I just intended them to be tucks from the bottom. Again, you could, if you want to, use them as tucks from the side. But that's another idea. This idea, again, uses that same pharmacy bag that I just showed you. And it's sort of like a flip-flap type thing. So if I glued this flat on my page, if I wanted to glue it flat on my page, I could have tuck space behind it, you know, on the side that I glue down, and then when I pull it open, I can have a tuck here. I could make all this journaling space. I could have extra tucks hidden in there. I have journaling space here when I flip it up, and again, this could be a little pocket or tuck as well. So it's sort of like a little Z-shaped flip-flap thing. And I made several of those using those just basic pharmacy envelopes. And then, oops, I'll stick that froggy journal over there. Additional idea using pharmacy bags. This one is a little bit wider gusseted type, or a little bit wider one. But, you know, just simply, I glued down the sides, because these pharmacy bags have the pleats on the sides, so I just glue those shut so they stay put, and then cut the top to the length that I want for my journal, and it gives me an area inside as just a simple pocket then that I can glue down to a page. And these are a couple ideas that I made in Mass Make March. I've got several others, but I just picked out these ones to show you. So that gives you a variety of ideas of things that you can make with your pharmacy bags, with any other like junk bags that you might get from the grocery store, with the junk mail that you get. I just wanted to pop on. This isn't a tutorial of how to, but just wanted to get those creative juices flowing today. So I hope you guys have a great day today. Join in all the fun, and I will talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.